Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 784. I had the white pieces, started off as d4, he goes d5, and I decided to play one of these knight c3 openings. Actually, at this point I hadn't decided whether I was playing the Jobava attack or the Richter-Veresov attack. I probably should have decided before moving. But anyway, knight c3, he went c6, and I kind of decided at this point to go for the Richter-Veresov type of game with bishop to g5. I looked at this later, and you can certainly still play the Jobava opening with bishop f4. In fact, I think I showed a game like this in the series where Jobava played with bishop f4 against the c6 move. And anyway, the idea would be just to continue with normal development and go for centralizing your pieces. And that would be a fine way to play. In fact, the chess engine gives white an edge here because black has played, the somewhat quiet move c6. Anyway, I went with bishop g5. This is a kind of opening where chess engine evaluates this as about even, which I think is correct. Somehow white is giving up the opening advantage, but what you get in return is kind of interesting play and novel position. So you're hoping to put your opponent on his own resources and see if he can figure things out in the time limit. So yeah, especially in blitz games, time is always a factor. So he played h6. I went bishop h4. This is good so far, but his next move, g5, is actually a bit of a mistake, and the chess engine gives white a pretty decent edge after that, which I keep most of the rest of the game. But there are options here. Just knight f6. There's actually nothing wrong with that move. I probably would trade. I mean, that's one of the ideas. Maybe not right away. Maybe I'd leave it there for a while as kind of a threat. But it's not a huge threat. I mean, it's going to force a doubling of black's pawns, which maybe is no big deal. And I have to give up the bishop pair in order to do that. So it's more just about creating interesting and novel positions than it is about creating some huge advantage. The other option black had here was to play queen b6, just playing actively, attacking the b pawn that was left behind when this bishop, it came out and then it got kicked back to h4, so it has no way to come back to the queen side and defend. And that's also about equal. Okay, but he went with g5, and after this I have some kind of nice edge for almost the whole game. Almost the whole game. Let's see, bishop g7, I go e3, so some normal development. Knight f6, bishop d3, bishop e6. This is a bit of an unusual move, but maybe it's not so bad. He's got to figure out, black has to figure out where to place his pieces, and this bishop is kind of in the way, so maybe this is just one of the ways to get it off the back rank. And it allows his knight to come here to d7. The thing is, the bishop doesn't have other good squares to go with, and we'll see what his idea is in another move. Let's see, I go knight f3 and he goes queen c8, and so now it's clear. He just wants to, he's identified this as a bad bishop and he just wants to trade it off, and I let him. The thing is that I castle and he trades. The thing is, he invested 1, 2, 3 moves in getting rid of his bad bishop, and so I have a pretty significant lead in development at this point, and also a better structure. He still has this advanced pawn on the king side, which it's not clear if it's really doing a whole lot for him at this point. Well, getting rid of the bishop had one other advantage to black, which is he can bring his knight out to a6. He wants to do this kind of rerouting, which if my bishop were still here, I probably would have chopped it off. So it did have that advantage. Let's see. I went with a3. I didn't want his knight coming into b4, and he went knight c7. And now I undertake operations on the king side with h4, which I think is a good move. But, well, the chess engine likes this move even better. King b1. It's one of the chess engine's top choices. And, well, as we saw in the game, it's kind of annoying to have to worry about the check along that diagonal all the time. So maybe this is a moment where I have time to just take a step aside with the king, get him to a slightly safer position, and then continue with play against the center and the king side. Anyway, I went ahead with h4 right away, and this still is keeping me with an edge. He pushed the g-pawn forward and then defended it with h5. But, well, there's weaknesses behind, and also these pawns can be attacked directly, which I start with f3. And now he plays queen e6, so this is an actual blunder because that loses a pawn. But even without that, it's still a good position for white. So the chess engine has, well, it either wants to trade the pawn first or just directly play knight to d7. So after g takes, I guess I wanted to mention this. I was thinking of taking with the knight, but the chess engine likes taking with the pawn better. I guess because it supports a c4 move. And then knight d7 to attack my knight. So, or just knight d7 directly. Leads to a similar kind of position. e4, knight e5. Let's just follow this through for a little bit. It's the chess engine's best play for both sides. Just exchanging things out in the center. And, well, it's black's move here. And the material, I think, is still even. Yeah, the material is still even. But I still have that edge in development. And his center is coming under quite a bit of pressure here with all of my pieces lined up on it. So this is actually a really strong position for white, probably a winning edge. So, so I've come out of this opening quite well. And of course he makes my job easier by just losing a pawn here. The idea is that I can move this knight with tempo. I can do a desperado. And I could play knight takes f7 right away, but I didn't spot the idea just yet. I traded on g4 first, which is what I'd been intending to do. And then in this position I looked around and spotted the idea. So knight takes f7 is what I played. And yeah, he doesn't have any way to save the pawn. And in fact, he needs to take the knight because his rook is hanging. So he takes my knight. I take his knight. So he went e6, which attacks my bishop. And I brought my bishop back to e5, intending to trade it off against his bishop. You know, still with the idea that this is a dark squared bishop and he has a lot of pawns on light squares, so probably his bishop is better than mine. Let's see, he castled queenside, and here's my first mistake really in the game. I went g3, which I was, you know, I was thinking of bringing my rook to the f file, put pressure on this knight, and I didn't want to leave this this pawn undefended, so g3, and also stops that pawn from coming forward and isolating my pawn. But there was no hurry to play g3. First of all, I can bring the d rook to f1. It's not doing a whole lot in the center at the moment. The center is very solidly defended. I can bring this over, leave this rook here, and his pawn is not coming forward. My bishop controls that square. So there was no hurry to play g3. It's an example, I guess, of a slow move, playing a move that doesn't really need to be played at that point. Just rook d to f1 directly, bringing more force into the attack is the strongest move here. So after g3, I still have an edge. So it's not like it was a horrible move, but, well, I just had better. And then here I traded bishops, which, again, the chess engine doesn't like so much. It would actually play, now that, well, now the h-pawn is defended, it would bring the h-rook over to kick the queen, and then drop the bishop back. And I guess one point is that this bishop is still defending the g3 pawn, whereas in the game, after I traded the bishop on g7, my g3 pawn was loose, and that became a concern later. And then the second point is that the chess engine does not mind trading the knight for the bishop. The knight is his more active piece at the moment, and so it's happy to go into an endgame, a pawn up. Well, it's not even an endgame yet, but if you imagine after the queens are traded, we might end up in an endgame where I've got this outside passed pawn, and I've got a knight versus a bishop, and should be good for me. So this looks good. In the game, I played bishop takes g7, and it's a little bit of a mistake. I was thinking it would drag his knight away from attacking the g-pawn, but of course he can just take with the queen. So I have to defend the g-pawn now. I played e4. He took. Taking is probably not the best move. I think he can do pretty much anything else, maybe bring a rook to the f file. because taking actually creates a worse pawn structure for black. And so now I have a pretty decent edge once again. I mean, I've kept the edge the whole game, and it's just been varying between, around +1 and sometimes up to +2. Let's see, and it's getting up there again. He goes e5, and I go knight c5, also a good move. Threatening to come into d6 with this fork. So he takes the pawn, hitting my queen. I had spotted this, and I saw that I could escape with a check. So queen f5 check is what I played. He went king b8, and then I went knight e6. And this is also still okay for me. I mean, still a good edge for white. But the strongest here would be to trade rooks. And then bring this rook to attack this pawn. And the chess engine says, let's see, he can grab here. But, well, I give this check now, threatening to win the knight. He can block the check with this queen and also defend the knight. But then I can take this pawn. And so I come out of this, let's see, it's actually materially even at the moment, but this pawn is going, and his knight is kind of awkwardly placed at the moment. His rook can't come here to chase my queen away because I can just take it. So anyway, this is still a winning position for white, according to the chess engine. Knight e6 is also good, but he went queen h6 check. And I need to react the right way here. So anyway, yeah, this is still winning for white all the way up to this point. And I've had the edge, or I've been winning. And then my next move blunders the game away. So anyway, it's a good exercise for you. What do you think the best move for white is here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. Pause the video if you want some time to think about it. The top choice of the chess engine is a very simple king b1, just step away from the check. And so first of all, you have to ask yourself what happens if he takes on g3. And the answer is you have queen takes e5 check. And there's his queen is no longer in a position to come over and defend. And not only am I hitting the knight and the king, I'm also hitting the rook. So I'm winning material here. I guess if I take the rook, he'll take my rook. So probably I have to take, I could take with the queen. Yeah, so I guess I'm winning material either way. I mean, he can get the exchange back, but I'll end up being a piece up here. Anyway, this is good for me. Let's see. Yeah, there's also bigger threats here than the material threat. I should have mentioned this. Yeah, because I mean he has threats too, right? I mean I'm hitting all of these pieces, but if my queen wanders away, it takes my knight. But there's an even bigger threat here. So see if you can spot the idea here. Okay, I hope you got this one, but pause the video if you haven't got it yet. Anyway, there's a Philidor mate here, a smothered mate, starting with knight c7. So that was all forced actually after queen takes e5. He had no way to block, and he can't run this way or there's an immediate mate. So from this position it's like a mate in 5. So he can't take there at all. Let's see. King b1. So he should trade rooks. Rook d1. I take the rook. And now he can play something like queen f6 and try and force his way out of trouble with a queen trade. But, well, once again, I don't have to trade. I can grab a pawn. And I have a winning edge at this position as well. Let's see. My second best move after king b1 is just to block with the knight. That also keeps a slight edge to white. I do have to worry now about this. Well, not yet. There's still this check, and the knight is defended. Yeah, I guess this g-pawn is still defended here. So say it's still an edge to white even with the second best move there. But the move I played, queen here, blocking the check. I just hadn't noticed that his queen was attacking my knight. And I'm just down a piece. And his technique is fine the rest of the game. He doesn't make any mistakes. He forces some trades and goes into this winning endgame. I hung on for a while, hoping to get into some kind of drawish endgame with rook versus rook and knight. But there's too many pawns. basically, I mean, rook versus rook and knight is actually a draw, but not with all the pawns on the board. So eventually, at this point, I resigned. I could have resigned on move 27, I guess. But anyway, it was a good game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I think it shows the advantages of playing these kind of offbeat openings, these knight c3 openings. They lead to interesting positions, and white has a lot of ideas, and your opponent won't always know the best line to take. So so anyway, worth a try if you're interested. So that's it for this video. See you guys later. Bye.